We got The Walking Dead Destinies review. Somebody played it and they reviewed it.
One of the least
Thank God we get to see it first.
A slow,
Hey.
husk that's better off buried than occupying our attention. If nothing else, The Walking Dead Destinies, based off the otherwise fantastic early seasons of the TV show, succeeds in embodying all their worst qualities. In its ugly, shuffling attempts to stand tall even while looking like
Okay, so this is what it looks like.
The Xbox 360 days. Destinies deserves neither your attention nor access to your wallet. And
Damn.
better off if this boring mess had stayed buried in the past. From
They're not saying too good of things right now.
Mechanics. Well, it earns a small amount of credit for at least attempting.
It does not look good.
That diverge from the TV show. Little else is done to elevate it above the muck of banal design, awful character models, and the
Because I was the voice actor.
barely a rough draft of a game.
Dying Light 2 is great. I'll have to try it. The Walking Dead Destinies. Destined for the trap. Wow.
Fans
Wow.
are clearly the target audience here, since the
Alright, there's Rick in the hospital.
likeness of their real performers. But aside from trying to strike a chord through recognizability, Destinies presumes you know the entire melody as you're unceremoniously thrown into the shoes of Rick Grimes.
That graphic looked terrible.
Alone. It is here right at the
Yeah, I like the genre too. All the zombie games are
hours,
failing.
everything falls apart. The hospital is naturally filled with zombies, and Rick must find his way out with some basic mechanics like pushing and sneaking and healing that we've seen in essentially every third-person post-apocalyptic horror game ever, but worse.
Easier than stabbing, right?
Zombies are
Yeah,
mindless
I think we all would have though.
but these are some of the most incompetent enemies you will encounter in any video game. Aside from there being only about 3 zombie models, they also get stuck in walls, glitch through the ceiling, collide with each other, and pose about as much threat as a wet sock on a carpet. Annoying and unsightly, but otherwise forgettable.
Stiff delivery. Man, this guy, he's got some cool references.
With hideous character models, terrible lighting, and homely environments that themselves.
Yeah, I don't like the lighting or
times.
character models
I've
either.
been playing plenty of games out of my backlog from the Xbox 360 days on my Series X lately, and I can tell you this current-gen game looks worse than the nearly 20-year-old GTA 4. The texture resolution reminds you of bad webcams we all endured during early COVID-19 Zoom calls. At the very least, the frame rates seem consistent at 60 frames per second on PS5 when it wasn't crashing or failing to display its so-called cutscenes.
Don't hurt my little girl.
I also hit several game-breaking bugs. One of
Looks
which
like a
required
cheap mobile game.
Also,
It
during
does.
a boss fight, my character refused to interact with the enemy to initiate a cutscene. Not to mention sound and music would vanish for no reason until I restarted. Speaking of, the cutscenes themselves are consistent with those cheap-looking
Who's that?
types we've seen in games like Redfall and Rise of
That's supposed to
Kong,
be Maggie?
which Destiny's
No, that's supposed to
game
be
is also
Rick's
behind.
wife,
Characters are
whatever the
displayed in
hell,
static
Lori.
poses while their voice actors deliver lines, giving you the opportunity to see their terrible designs in full glory. They are clearly meant to vaguely resemble their TV counterparts, but they look like what you'd get if you asked me to draw.
Yeah, I've watched 28 days later. I watched 28 weeks later, days later, months later.
Performances are actually not atrocious.
They're not
But
bad.
the actors didn't have much to work with. For example, they all have one
Really?
when taking down enemies or fighting them off.
I mean, it's good.
Boiling.
They repeat this endlessly.
My blood's boiling.
I don't think there is a
In the
28
context of the
years
business
later.
world
I
of
know there's
constant
days,
terror,
months, and
hearing
weeks.
weird action movie one-liners from both an ex-cop and a 70-year-old farmer was jarring.
Stay alert, Herschel.
Destiny's doesn't even retell the show's
Is
story.
that Herschel?
For example, early on, when Rick's
There's no
son
months?
Carl is shot,
I thought there was.
it is then
There-
explained
isn't
who
it
shot him. No one seems
days?
to know or care. At
Weeks,
all.
months.
In fact,
Isn't there
Otis,
3?
The culprit in the show never even appears in Destinies. Instead, the survivors simply grab the boy and run off to the Green Farm
There's
story
2?
arc that infamously slowed the series' pace down.
Oh, there was 3. You
The
sure?
only thing Destinies has going for it is being able to play with the titular dynamic, the fates of its characters. There are many occasions where you must
So
make
it's
a primary
like-
decision that leads to the death or abandonment of a survivor. If you know the show, it is of course enjoyable to make the decision that runs against the established plot. Most notably, you can basically recast the main character.
They made this like the
to
Telltale game
after spending
series,
some time at the farm,
where you
They
can make the
take over
decision.
husband and father to Rick's family. That's a pretty dramatic fundamental change.
Only one of us is going back to that farm.
It's clear the developers had some love for the show, given the work put into portraying Shane as we've never seen him. His hair and beard grow out. He forms relationships with characters he never met, and so on. Another good example of an impactful decision involves changing who becomes the final boss's right-hand man, flowing from a decision you make in the first few hours. But unfortunately, this is only interesting conceptually, since it fails miserably in execution, and naturally most decisions do little to affect the actual plot. The survivors move through different camp areas in their grand road trip, such as the previously mentioned farm and
because of
later
the story.
These become hub areas where you do three things: start the next main and side missions, resolve a meaningless conflict between two characters, and talk to other survivors.
Don't you look down at your nose at me, sonny boy.
And by
There's
talk,
Merle.
I mean each person will say one arbitrary generic line whenever you go back to the hub area, offering no reflection on the events happening around them. For example, Rick's wife Lori comments on her pregnancy,
I couldn't bring a baby into this.
and she's saying this to the man who blew her husband's brains out. Each main mission usually sees you playing as a different survivor. Often this makes little sense since you're generally by yourself or playing as the worst person for the task at hand. For
Of
example,
course.
a few hours into Destinies, Lori gives birth in the prison. But a few minutes later, you're playing as her to recover items from a nearby department store. There were many other survivors who did not just endure a birth in a zombie apocalypse who could have gone, but sure, let's send the new mother. No explanation is given.
The right choice is the choice that keeps
Back
us
from the
alive.
dead.
Destinies attempts to shake up the scenarios in its main quest, but they all come down to either getting to a specific part of the map or collecting items. Very rarely will two characters be together, assisting one another, which was a central focus of the entire show and its spin-offs. There was an opportunity to have one character make decisions that a second character would have to endure. the
That zombie
consequences
just
of,
blow
but
up?
Destinies does nothing with this. In fact, it's just not very good at consequences in general. The central and titular dynamic of Destinies is watching your choices define the lives of these survivors, but it doesn't function well enough to maintain the illusion. More than once I saw characters I'd killed deliberately or inadvertently appear during cutscenes. Rick's son, who died from a gunshot in my playthrough, was running from the farm in a static cutscene. Rick himself, who had Shane kill, appeared for a solid few seconds battling the Horde in the final fight. This may be a universe where the dead return from the grave, but I don't think Destinies is doing it right.
Nice.
Each survivor has various unique skills that can be upgraded by acquiring skill points, either through completing tasks or finding radios for some reason. For example, the pizza delivery guy can upgrade his sneaking movement speed to avoid conflict with zombies, or Rick's revolver can do more damage. The skill tree is a massive eyesore and ultimately meaningless. In the first 2 hours, I'd already maxed it out for everyone.
That's gonna be great.
Even fully upgraded, combat in Destinies is some of the worst you will experience and feels as though it might have been lifted from shovelware of previous console generations. There is no kickback or feel to guns or melee weapons. Shooting is floaty and unresponsive with terrible waterlock that has you targeting enemies nowhere near you. Every character has the exact same set of moves, whether they are a fit hunter or a new mom. Characters can use a kind of super move when they've built enough adrenaline which restores health and kills enemies instantly. But that also feels pointless when you're fighting zombies that are so slow and die in 2 hits. You do eventually begin to encounter tougher human enemies, but their armor and agility just means they are more irritating and take longer to kill. Oddly, they are also introduced out of nowhere and not spoken of at all. They first appear during Shane's only flashback sequence to when he was trying to rescue Rick from the hospital. Who are they? What do they want? Why are they attacking Shane? Sorry, you'll never know if you haven't watched the TV series. Shane himself never reacts to it.
Yeah, but they didn't try and rescue him from the hospital in the
Boring,
TV series. What do you
ugliness of
mean?
the game to be avoided at all costs, The Walking Dead Destinies fails to do anything interesting with the story and the characters of the popular TV show it's based on. The ghost of a promising concept haunts the periphery, that of making choices different from what happened in the early seasons of the show and watching them play out. Its horrendous graphics, weightless combat, repetitive mission design,
You ready?
and as many bugs as zombies
4,
reduce Destinies to the
2.
of a biological hazard.
Yikes. I was gonna say 3, but I felt like that was too low. I guess I wasn't low enough.
Free Zombies and Alan Wake 2. For
Damn.
everything else, stick with IGN.
And this guy, because he's got like the best reaction in the world. That was good.